So UFC 247 was tonight, and Dominic Reyes took on John Jones. And I mean, surprisingly, because going into this fight, I didn't give Reyes much of a chance. I thought it was kind of going to be like an Anthony Smith type of a deal, where he didn't give John much of a chance, and John kind of just got to flex inside the octagon. But really, what ended up happening is Reyes came out strong, gave John hell the first couple rounds, thought he won the first three. John came out the championship rounds, won those final two pretty decisively. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the night, Johnny Bones Jones still champ. That round number two, I think, was the deciding round ultimately. And yeah, what did you guys see?
I'm gonna agree with you. The second round was a toss up, right, to where it could go. I thought Jones did a little bit more. He controlled the octagon much more. Reyes was explosive, but it seemed like he was on his heel for quite a bit, if I recall correctly. Kai, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you both there. I think that round two is definitely the round mostly in question. I think it was pretty. I mean, you could make an argument either way. Like you were saying, I think Reyes definitely demonstrated a lot of explosiveness in there. But I do think that Jones, you could also make the argument round away as well. So I think that's the really biggest one in question. I think John definitely did a good job of finishing out the fight, and Reyes, definitely in that situation didn't need to leave it in the judge's hands. He really needed to take away the belt, and I think that Jones did barely enough to take away the fight there.
Even through the middle of the fourth, I was thinking it was very possible that John was going to lose the belt, and I mean, you know, I did think it was kind of 2-2 going into that fifth round, but at the same time, you're never really sure. Um, Reyes definitely won the first round, and more or less, I think that's almost John Jones's like not strategy because you can't really say losing your round is a strategy, but to almost take a round off that first round, like a feeling out round, almost like taking a pitch in baseball, like seeing that first one come in just to see how everything's going, see how the
See what happens.
motion is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he almost takes the first round off, and I don't know if that's necessarily the correct thing or the best strategy. But because it kind of does put him in
Tonight,
a
so
position.
don't shoot the messenger.
Been doing late as of lately, right?
Yeah, I mean it kind of does put him in a position where he has to then come back and then have to perform in the final harder rounds where what I mean, like fourth quarter is definitely the hardest time. Middle of the fifth round, like you're so fucking tired, you're gassed, like you've already eaten that much damage. And that's another thing. Like, arguably, John ate more damage in this fight. You know what I mean? Like the rounds, yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
might have come out on top, but if we're going by pride rules, like it's a lot closer fight than even this. You know what I mean? And I think there is something to be said for the judges being kind of asleep at their desks a lot of the night.
But if you
But
look at the significant strikes, it's not that crazy. The only Reyes only dominated in the two rounds, and then it kind of balanced.
Yeah, and then I think you got to take into account, of course, the takedowns that John had, and I mean, obviously they weren't like dominant. He didn't really possess dominant ground position for a lot of that, but he did get him down a couple times, so you got to throw that in there too.
yeah, yeah. Um. So so for round two, uh, watching it live, who'd you have? Because kind of watching it live, I did think John might have won that round, but I would have been willing to say at that moment that Reyes had round two.
I thought it was a toss up personally. It could have went either way. I wasn't mad when it went to John, but I wouldn't have been disappointed if it went to Reyes. It was pretty close. But when you look at those stats again, Reyes was significantly more active. He was 33% more active, it looks like. Sorry
Mm-hmm.
for successful landed strikes.
Yeah, and I know octagon control is a criteria to like judge things, but like I don't think it's as important as a lot of other things like damage, strikes landed, like that type of thing. And the fight was really close. It's not like a robbery like a lot of people make it out to be. It's really not.
Hmm.
But I will say for a significant part of that fight, it looked like John was going to lose, or he was going to have to dig deep and come back. And I mean, we were talking about it live. Greg Jackson was calling for a finish. He thought, at the very least, you know what I mean, the fight was in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think is next here? Like, oh, and another thing that I don't want to gloss over, John seems so concussed at the post-fight interview. It seemed like almost like he wasn't quite sure the fight he was in. I know
It
it's
wasn't fully there.
yeah, and I know it's hard. It's hard to recount those things like live anyway. But man, like yeah, it seemed like he was he was rocked at the very least.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. He definitely seemed a bit out of it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Reyes definitely landed a few really good shots, especially some of those uppercuts, man. I'm surprised that he wasn't able to put John down with those.
Yeah.
John Panic Wrestling was definitely a sight to see. I never not never thought I'd see that, but I didn't think I'd see it in this fight. That's for sure. And then moving on down the card, what we had Valentina versus Katlyn Chukakin, right?
That's correct. And it went significantly longer than I anticipated. I don't know about you.
Yeah, she ended up catching Valentina in a crucifix, and what was it, the third or the fourth?
Other way around. Valentina had Catlin in the crucifix.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But what was that? The third, fourth,
I guess it was. I think it
third?
was the second.
Nah, third.
You think? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got it up right here. And then she did that horrible flip attempt after.
Fell on her ass.
But Catlin had that nasty gash opened up above her eye. Let's see if I can find a picture of it here. Ooh. Do you see the skin flapping off? Oh my God, do you see this? Oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Gross.
That is fucking disgusting. Holy shit. I didn't catch that live.
No,
Like
neither did I. That was
I saw the kick, but wow, I didn't see that little bit. Holy shit, that's brutal.
that fight was rough to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here's
very
that
reminiscent.
elbow that slices her open right there. That's fucking mean. And then she gets up. She's not really leaking, and then by the time she walks over to the side, she's fully cut up. Ooh. But yeah, another dominant performance by Valentina. I mean, there's not really anyone left in her division. It's kind of another like situation like that where there's more exciting fights because some of these are like to me at least lesser known girls that, for all I know, have a shot at her. But it doesn't look like anyone that I've heard of could touch her. You know what I mean? Beyond rematches or going up to a different weight class or fighting like Amanda again or something. You know, because that might be very interesting. But other than that, like I can't really think of anything interesting I'd like to see. I'm not saying like I wouldn't watch Valentina fight, but like what is there anything that stands out to you in that division? Off the top of your head? 125?
I think she's cleared through everyone of note. She even took out a couple of the 115ers, and
You know,
it's not a dead division like the featherweight, but it's kind of so dominant like how Cyborg was.
all these are very reminiscent of like back in the day when George and Anderson and BJ were all at the top. Oh yeah, remember when we saw Halle Berry and we were like, "Damn, she looks more like J Lo than Halle Berry." For real, right? Like she looks like somebody, but it doesn't look like Halle Berry.
But Halle Berry.
And yeah, so I mean another down performance by Valentina, and I don't really have much more to say about that. I mean it was just kind of expected. She was a heavy favorite going in, and you know got the job done.
Yeah. And if you go through that top 10 list of her weight division, you're not going to find anyone of note that's been able to string together more than two fights or two wins in a row, right? Like if you look at Catlin, I think she was two fights prior to this, and she's coming off a loss to Jessica I, and then Jessica has a bit of a salty record on top of that too, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so then the next fight down the card we had Juan Adams versus what's the dude's name? Justin
Justin
Tafa. Okay,
Tafa.
so Justin Tafa is a big boy, very reminiscent of Mark Hunt. It's like in the
Mhm.
tribal tattoos and everything. Um, So we had a relatively quick knockout here, and I can't say it really wasn't expected from me. Now I think Adams was the favorite going in, but he had just lost 2 fights previous. One to Greg Hardy, and I'm not sure who the one was before that, but this is his third loss in a row. So I'd expect to see him get cut here, if not, be on the
Mhm.
chopping block in an early prelim fight, maybe overseas or something, just because he's not in a favorable position with the UFC. But again, they're not really in the position to cut many heavyweights. But yeah, I mean, impressive stuff there. I'm kind of surprised that fight had the spot it did on the card, given that Derek Lewis and Latifi were on it earlier. But I mean, it is what it is.
Derek
Then
Lewis and Latifi was a good opener though for the card.
it was, but we'll get to that 1 second. Real quick, the fight before this was a very close one. Who was it? Who was it between?
Dan Eag, I believe, and then Mirsad Bektik,
Yes.
featherweight.
Now this fight, Bektik almost finished with an arm triangle, um, but after that, I mean, he you know seemed to kind of burn out, but it seemed like he did enough to win the fight. That like finishing that arm triangle almost warranted a 10-8 itself. And I think Rogan and Cruz had mentioned various times the judges quite literally were not watching the fights. Like they were looking at the floor, doing other shit, looking at their phones or whatever. And this is another fight where it was. I will say it was close. Like yeah, it's not like the worst. Neither of these fights are the worst robberies like that I've ever seen, but it definitely like
Begs the
if
question.
yeah, like if that's your job and you're getting paid to do that, like I can understand, like if you're a fan and you don't want to pay attention all the time, even if you're a ticket buyer, like you know what I mean, even if you're in the front row. But it's different if you're getting paid by somebody to like judge the fight. Like that's like someone not answering like a fucking 911 hotline, like a 911 operator. It's like you have that's your thing. Like there's no one else there in place. Like we're falling back on you if there's no decision here, or like no knockout or no finish. Like if there is a decision, like you need to tell us who wins, and it's mind blowing to me. And like, yes, I get disinterested with this shit all the time, but like I'm not fucking getting paid like that much to fucking, you know what I mean? Like that's their job.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're not getting paid to be there. You're not getting paid to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so yeah, like not the worst decision, but could have went the other way, and people probably would have been a little more happy. It's kind of like the John thing. Like the crowd is booing, and people are upset, but it's not the worst robbery in the world. It's just not. Um, this knockout gets worse and worse
Yeah, that
every
was
time I see it.
nasty.
Yeah, it really was.
Um, so then what do we have? We have the Derek Lewis Alir Latifi fight. Now Latifi was coming up to 205 to heavyweight.
Yep.
I didn't think he had that bad of weight issues. I mean, I know he was like a stockier guy. Like I know he did have weight issues at least one time. But for him to go up to heavyweight, they must have been really bad. You know what I mean? Because it seems like he's going to be at a severe disadvantage going up to heavyweight. I mean, he just looked tiny
He's
against Lewis, and as well as he did in the fight, like I don't know if it was judges not paying attention. I don't know if it was, you know what I mean, like the size difference, or like you
Mhm.
said earlier, octagon control. Like, but even then, like he was controlling Lewis a lot of the fight. Now, Lewis had a fantastic final few seconds. I mean, like he threw a flying knee and then charged Latifi against the cage, but like that's not enough to win a fight. And
Mhm.
when the decision was announced, everybody kind of looked at each other and was like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, that's I guess all I really have to say about that one. Like, it kind of a disappointing performance from Derek Lewis too. But he has those every now and again. You know what I mean? And he got a win, so I mean, it's not too disappointing. He got the desired outcome, but it's a fan. It left a little bit to be desired.
Th- this fight was really only going to go one of two ways, though. It was either going to go like this, and Latifi and Derek Lewis hugging for or Lewis was going to knock him out in the first round, right?
Yeah, and I almost think if Lewis would have showed a little bit of that fire early on, like he seems to do that, just kind of rest, bide his time, and then fire back. And
Mhm.
I just wish he was more. It's like we were talking about John earlier too. Like he takes the first couple rounds off. That's how I feel about it. And maybe it's part of strategy. Not fight as hard some round or whatever. But the strategy should never be to lose the round. You know what I mean? Even if you're quote unquote taking a round
Yeah,
off.
agreed.
And how
Um,
much was that too? Like we were talking about kind of before, was about training too, or lack of training,
yeah,
falling behind and
and
inability to.
as much as it might be a lack of training, it might also be like quite literally there's how many tapes now of John Jones fighting and training and going through fighting camps and in his amateur days, what, 30 different tapes of him. Compared to
Mhm.
Reyes, there's not that much to study. He can kind of formulate a game plan. He has that herky jerky motion we were talking about. You were saying he kind of looks like Dominic Cruz at
He's a
205.
wannabe 205 Dominic Cruz. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, how much of that is like quite literally like people have been gunning for you for so long that, when John fights, he fights like the number two guy every time. Everybody else fights like sometimes the top 15, sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes the top
Hmm.
10, 5, but him, it's like he fights the number two guy. And if it's not the number two guy, it's a guy that could be the number two guy or like will be down the line. Or, you know what I mean? It's just because he's already beat those other guys.
Yep.
So,
Well, if you look at Reyes's record, it's not bad at all. But the last couple names are like Chris Weidman, Volkan Ozdemir, Oven St. Peru. None of those are. I don't think any of them are in the top five contenders.
yeah, I mean, I think maybe they are, but I mean, they've already had their loss. You know what I mean? They don't have
Yep.
that aura anymore. Like even beating them doesn't get you that. That's what I felt a long time ago when Alexander Gustafsson, like everyone thought he was shot, and then he beat Glover Teixeira, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, he's back!" I'm like,
He's
"Yeah,
back.
but it's Glover Teixeira." You know what I mean? Like, not to take anything away from him, but he's over the hump. He's already had his
Hmm.
best days. They're already behind him, and yeah, man, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about it.
Check out if you check out Wikipedia under Dominic Reyes right now. It has his win loss record. Obviously, they've changed it to a win, and his method of win or method. Sorry, it's a loss, but method of loss is screwed by Joe Solis. So I'm gonna assume that's the.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about a little bit about, more about the Jones Reyes fight. Do you think John still has the aura that he once had, or does he now seem completely beatable? Because he almost seems human now. If you're me looking at it, like yes, he's fucked those people up already, but more and more every fight, it's almost catching up to him. I wonder if those diminishing returns really are like, because let's face it, however many fights he's had is already incredible. Like getting out of there, you know, say 10 fights in your career, that's just incredible on its own. Like Robert Whitaker can't fight more than 2 or 3 times without getting seriously injured. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
Mhm.
look at Dominic Cruz. Like, you know,
Can't even do one.
yeah, he's out 3 years per fight, and it's just it's just one of the like I don't know if he still has that aura. Like, even if he were to fight Brock Lesnar tomorrow, do you think he'd beat Brock Lesnar? I would always say that yeah, he would fucking clown Brock Lesnar, but now I'm not so sure, and it's more so because the damage is just fucking catching up to him, dude.
Hmm.
And he
Or
did
it's
have all
catching up
that
to him.
he did have all that time out to heal, but you know now he's been in wars already. He's already been back a few times. Like he's not in his prime anymore either. Like he's in his prime maybe in terms of
Athletic prime.
yeah, but he's maybe in the final like 6 months to year of that window. If he
Hmm.
is even like, I think he's already probably maybe 6 months past the hump. Not where he can't be competitive, not where he's not at the top level, but I think he's already on the decline. Cause I think we've seen the best of John Jones already.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he doesn't have great achievements left, could still win a heavyweight belt, stuff like that. But he's he's not the innovative John Jones we once knew. If
I'll
Yeah.
agree with that.
if anything, I'd say he has regressed.
Yeah, he's much slower, much more basic. He's a
Mm-hmm.
lot less exciting to watch.
He seems like he only like wrestling, for example. We were mentioning he never wrestles. The only reason he wrestled tonight was he was panicking because he didn't know what to do when he was rocked. You know, there's a big difference between
Mm-hmm.
having your game plan to get takedowns and work things on the ground and stuff, and like, you know, panic wrestling, and not even to take anything away from it, because that's a great skill to have. You know, you're getting fucked up, and just to throw a takedown and fucking control the fight real quick, and you know, um, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I'm seeing so much that everyone thinks he was robbed, and you know, even Rogan asked about an immediate rematch. That is a fight that might warrant an immediate rematch. Like, I would say a lot don't. But again, it's not the worst robbery in the world. I would not be surprised if, like, if you're John's camp, there's no way I would step back into this fight. I'd be looking to fight a rematch with Santos before that, you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
and now also, it doesn't look like Santos is in a great place for a rematch, because before he was one of the only ones to give John a competitive fight, but now, you know, Reyes has done it too. So, like, if anything, Reyes should fight Tiago for the next shot at Jones again, because either any of those fights, it's like, you know, the sharks swirling, they smell blood.
I'd be okay with that actually. Santos and Reyes. That'd be awesome because if you think about it, if you go back to the Alexander Gustafsson fight, people actually thought Alexander won there. I was actually at that fight, um, and people were very pissed when they saw that Jones won. And he didn't get a rematch so that fight was in 2013. He didn't get a rematch until 2018, 5 years later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as close as it was, right? Now, to be
Hmm.
fair, at the time, I'd say John had so many more interesting contenders, where now he's kind of, you know, really it's either he goes up to fight Stipe or DC, or Lesnar, or he has a super fight with Adesanya that everyone would like to see, but Adesanya really probably isn't ready yet. And then we have like, you know, it just doesn't seem like there's that many intriguing options for him. I mean, these two rematches are would be good to see. Don't get me wrong, but even then, they're rematches. You know what I mean? It's not like a highly anticipated fresh matchup. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
in heavyweight, definitely doesn't look like the move now. Like, because if some of those shots were heavyweight, he would have been put down
Yeah,
tonight.
he was eating those uppercuts almost on whenever Reyes wanted to put him in.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like they're not doing a ton of damage, but if someone else was throwing them, they would be.
Yeah, it added up a lot quick.
And yeah, anything else to add, guys?
No, overall, it was a little bit of a sad card. This would have been more, this would be a good ESPN card. It's hard to shell out 60 or
Yeah.
$70 for a card like this. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's at a point where the pay-per-view model it might be, you know, it might be still generating buys, but I think they're leaving a lot of money on the table having an event so expensive. Like, how many people do you know stream this shit? Like, mostly because they're priced out of buying it. Like, you know, nowadays you go to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you hear people at work, you hear people like in the stores and shit. Like, everyone's talking about it, and like everybody knows somebody with a way to stream it. And I think they're pricing a lot of people out. I mean, I even saw
Yeah.
people talking tonight about ordering it on Spectrum, and they were worried because Spectrum was down, our cable provider across the Northeast, that they weren't going to be able to order it, and then people had to like type even in Facebook like you can't even order it there anymore. Like, it's all on ESPN Plus. So like, yeah, I mean, I think something fair would be like a $20 a month or $30 a month, you know, DAZN type subscription. You get all events, but it is just getting ridiculous, you know, especially when the fights don't deliver. And not to take anything
I
away from
agree.
any of the people tonight, but it wasn't the most stacked card I've ever seen. You know, I'm not going to be talking about this card for years to come or anything like that. So,
No,
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it was a decent card, but I agree. Like after a few months, I think it's definitely gonna be way back in the rear view. Pretty forgettable.
yep, and that's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Bye, guys.